It's June 23rd, 2022. Supreme Court made a decision about something in New York. Then Governor Kathy Hochul came out and she spoke on it. And now the city mayor came out and he made an announcement. So I just want to separate the clips and put this one up. Here's the clip.
As he walks his way down right now, we want to tell you that this decision was Supreme Court struck down a provision in.
Now this is, it says SIG space 516 space UPPER.
In New York's gun law in the midst of this nationwide rash of deadly shooting. The court's ruling the state's restrictions on concealed weapons violates a person's right to carry guns outside the home. As you can see, the mayor's coming up right now, and let's listen into what he has to say.
I have said and stated for some time now that the Supreme Court decision was keeping me up at night. It's clearly reached the point where we won't have any sleep. This decision is so impactful. When I spoke with my chief counsel, based on his preliminary analysis, I said, give it to me on a scale of 1 to 10. It's very close to a 10 of a major concern that we have. While we're still analyzing the decision, we can say with certainty this decision has made every single.
Now, inside here, as a side note, there's a gun, there's a musket. Inside the news conference, he does say they'll stop at nothing and that they will reach out to the extensive mayor network that they have established. More frightening than ever, considering this exacerbated situation gave them some unbeknownst additional 20 years after already taking 30 before, and I don't know how many before that.
One of us less safe from gun violence. The decision ignores the shocking crisis of gun violence every day, engulfing not only New York, but engulfing our entire country. The opinion claims to be based on nation's historical past, but
it's an interesting word he used. Engulf. At some point, they had a Gulf War I wasn't privy to. I also was not invited to.
But does not account for the reality of today. It ignores the present and it endangers our future. While nothing changes today, and we want to be clear on that, nothing changes today. We have been preparing for this decision and will continue to do everything possible to work with our federal, state, and local partners to protect our city.
Now, during this, the Supreme Court announcement, between that and the Kathy Hochul, there was an announcement about a ratification in 1788. Just so we are clear. Since at 1978, there's been some real issues. Since I'm Rh negative, and there were some safety issues before I was to be married, and there was some keeping me from the family and the knowing of the family and where I belong, and the grooming, for where at SU, an upper room, SU, I belonged. And instead, they kept me in a JU inside North America, and then they switched everything. So these are going on at the same time. So what was at the scene of the crime as it was happening, as a crime in progress for the entire 43 years of my life?
We will collaborate with other mayors, municipality leaders, and governors, and will leave no unturned stone as we seek to undo and mitigate the damage that we are witnessing today. Those efforts would.
It gets really difficult to know who he works for since his messenger system is so confusing. If we were in a clean system with clean intel, with clean operations, and I was in the correct marriage and had the correct children with the correct suitor, it would look one way and would be behaving one way. Instead, they ratified this Constitution. They totally did whatever they did prior to when I was supposed to be matched up for Built For in cosmology and the stars. They played games, they being the humans, in multinational color, technicolor, if you will, and lack thereof. And here's where we are today, and still nothing is resolved. In fact, the world's more dangerous, having followed each other blindly.
Would include a comprehensive review with the Corporation Counsel, our Chief Counsel, and other legal experts to assist us in this manner. As we start to define sensitive locations when carrying a gun is banned, and reviewing our application process to ensure that only those who are fully qualified can obtain a carry license. This is something that the police commissioner who's joining me today will ensure that our licensing division is aware of.
I also want to make sure I have a Jeanville, my Lewis, who whatever and whatever. I don't really trust as much after circumstances have gone the way that they've gone. Clearly, more is wrong extensively. I did spend my senior year or part thereof with someone who is a janvier in a January. It's important, to me anyway.
We work together to limit the risk this decision will create once it is implemented. And we cannot allow New York to become the Wild Wild West. That is unacceptable. This decision is created. We will not allow our city to live in fear that everyone around us is armed and that any altercation could evolve into a shootout. We will not allow the men and women of the police department to be subjected to further danger, making their already difficult jobs even more harrowing. And let me say this again. We will do everything in our power, using every legal resource available to ensure the gains we've seen during this administration are not undone, and that New Yorkers are not.
If I go Hollywood for a moment and I do a compare and contrast, the Batman that has a penguin reference, this feels very reminiscent of a portion of that. Again, I haven't seen the whole movie. I really didn't have context as to where it was relevant in real world. But at this point, even though the characters are cast complete opposites between black and white, it does have that very real, seedy feel to it.
Putting greater danger of gun violence. There is no place in the nation that this decision affects as much as New York City. There is no place in the nation that is going to be impacted based on this decision more than New York City.
Which nation? I'm just curious, because nation under God. And now there's multiple nations. I mean, if you look at New York and you pull up the flags that are allowed inside that very real residential, like, it's not brick and mortar, but it is brick and mortar, even though it's steel and glass. You pull up the outside foreign nations that gather there, and nobody has any idea what they really do as far as being left here. That is a multiple nation of concern, considering that I didn't get to the market place that I needed to be. Marked. Special Task Force mark. When time and space ends and you exist outside of the visual spectrum.
There's no place in the nation that the decision affects as much as New Yorkers. And we are prepared to set an example that will lead the country of how do we fight back on this decision. Today's Supreme Court decision may have opened an additional river that is going to feed the sea of gun violence in our city and in our nation.
Now, is that a fraudulent statement? Because it's already been fed, and it keeps feeding in vulgar, amongst the vulgar. If I speak chitty chitty bang bang and like veet 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 toot sweet, I don't have a watch. There's no watch in New York that ticks. There's no band. There's no face. There's no face, and there's no tick on the watch in New York that I can see or that I'm aware of. Therefore, I don't know what time it is.
Now is the time for every elected official who cares about the safety of all Americans to come together and respond thoroughly and comprehensively to this appalling decision. Our work begins now to start saving New Yorkers and Americans. Please, Commissioner.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor said, this case has been...
So now that was the mayor, and now this is who he's installed as the police commissioner. Just so we're clear. And then a very tall, someone to look up to representative comes to speak at the mic after she does.
Been remanded back to the lower court. So the important thing to know today is that nothing changes. If you have a premise permit, it does not automatically convert to a carry permit. If you carry a gun illegally in New York City, you will be arrested. Nothing changes today, and that's important for everyone to be aware of. When we open the universe of carry permits, it potentially brings more guns to the city of New York and to the streets of New York City.
Wow, that's a really strong statement. If we open the universe, who's opening the door? La porta? Apre la porta or ouvre? Je ne sais pas, non so.
And that should concern us all. Mr. Mayor?
On top of questions, Katie?
Mayor, can you specify, you've spoken about the idea of sensitive areas before. Is there a possibility to, based on population or anything like that, to determine the city is a sensitive area? Can you talk to us just a little bit about what the process is like and give us any idea what could potentially be involved?
We're still very
very much in the process of reviewing the opinion, and we obviously will, any measures that we take will be consistent with the opinion, but we are going to consider, as the mayor said, every option available, and that includes when we examine sensitive locations and figuring out how can we, in a way that will most protect New York residents of New York City to the utmost extent, how can we do so in a way that is consistent with the law, and in a way that is reasoned and thoughtful in terms of the way in which we can protect those here in the city.
How can we expect policing to change once this ruling takes effect?
Well, I think the police commissioner made it clear, and this is so important because we saw this during the marijuana, legalization of marijuana in the state. People automatically, they only read the headlines, they thought they can go out and just sell marijuana whatever they want. And the police commissioner's comment that nothing has changed. If you have a target permit, that is not a carry permit. And the thought that people may hear this ruling, believe they can openly carry, those who are legally allowed to have a permit of some sort. So we're going to send a very clear message. Number one, nothing has changed. But number two, we're going to continue our pursuit as we have removed over 3,000 illegal guns off our streets. We're going to continue to pursue that. This complicates matters. And if it's implemented, and there's still levels to it, as it was mentioned, but we are going to continue to pursue those who are carrying illegal firearms.
How do you expect the permitting process will change, and do you envision a permitting process because of this decision will now take longer and be more deliberate?
So we're evaluating our permitting process, but obviously, as the mayor stated, we'll wait and see what happens.
It's *1978, *8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It is Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.